If you're a USC cornerback, it's going to be different.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download your podcast, the show is always free, and the show will always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, so we know USC is going in the big conference this season, right? I got a few questions about the cornerbacks going in the summer. One of them is, if you want to be a starting cornerback at USC, is the path through the transfer portal? Kind of feels that way, right? When it comes to the transfer portal and Lincoln Riley's defense, I can actually say there are some positives that we can point to. One of them is they're able to identify talent that's in the transfer portal. Most notably, it's at cornerback. Since Lincoln Riley took over the program, and that includes with Alex Grinch as his defensive coordinator, whether it's, out of necessity or not, USC has added 2 veteran experienced cornerbacks each year, including 2024. Excuse me, in 2022, USC brought in Mekhi Blackman from Colorado and Jacoby Covington from Washington. And then last season, you brought in Christian Roland Wallace from Arizona and Traquan Fagans from Alabama. 2 of those guys, 2 of those 4, right now are literally competing in the NFL. And Jacoby Covington is getting ready to, spend another year at USC. He's looking to build off of his performance last season, especially, the performance he had in the Holiday Bowl. Blackman, Roland Wallace, Covington, look, you got proof right there. 3 guys that, despite playing in a poor defensive scheme, they've proven if you're talented, you can still find a way to make an impact. Even if you're put in if you're being put in a situation where it makes it hard to be successful. That's all I'm going to say. DeCarlos Nicholson, John Humphrey. Those are the 2 cornerbacks who have come through the transfer portal in 2024. And here's the really lucky thing for these guys. They will not be playing with any type of schematic handicap. Yeah. John Humphrey knows his defensive coordinator, Danton Lynn at UCLA, is now his defensive coordinator at USC. Both Humphrey at UCLA, DeCarlos Nicholson, Mississippi State, they left starting jobs at those previous locations. And just like their predecessors, both are looking to, improve the Trojans' defense. And they want to do that before they take their wares off to the NFL. Now, I think it makes sense that Humphrey will start. He knows the scheme. Like I said, he came over from UCLA with his former defensive coordinator, Danton Lynn. So, he already has his coach's confidence there on that side of the ball. That's kind of a no-brainer. And like I've said many times on the show before, if you're a starter at another school and you're jumping into the transfer portal, you probably know where you're going, and you're not transferring because you're going to sit. You're not going to, you're going to go under there, to compete, using finger quotes. But I promise you, unless he's hurt, he's not going to be. You can anticipate DeCarlos starting on the other side, opposite John Humphrey, when USC and LSU kick off their seasons in Las Vegas. I also anticipate that Jacoby Covington and Prophet Brown will be pushing both of them for playing time. Here's another question I have. Will the big conference offenses, will that make USC's cornerbacks' job more difficult. I think everyone would probably agree that the Pac-12 was probably considered more of a 7-on-7 passing league, that type of conference, very pass-oriented. So again, if you played cornerback in the Pac-12, you knew you had to bring your track shoes every day. It was going to be a track meet. But it's also kind of a misnomer about the Pac-12. Teams that knew how to balance their offense, balance the pass with the run game, were probably successful. Utah, Oregon State. Those, and look, if we're being honest, those are the teams. And it's not just USC, but those are the teams that have given USC the most problems these last handful of years. So we know how USC and the Pac-12 plays offense, well, how the former Pac-12 played offense. And despite Ohio State having some of the best wide receivers in the country annually, I think most would probably agree when it comes to the Big 10 conference, Big 18. This is why I call it the Big Conference. You will too, going forward. I think they're still known for their 3 yards in a cloud of dust mentality. That's what I've known them as. Yeah, I know they've stepped into the 21st century, but they still like to run the ball a lot. Look, in their win against Penn State last year on the road in Happy Valley, the national champion Michigan Wolverines, they proved, I mean, they tested it. Passing is still optional. You do not need to throw the ball to win a ball game. They did that to Penn State. In the entire second half of that game last year, they did not throw one pass. In fact, I don't think they threw a pass from the 7-minute mark of the second quarter. That's nuts. So that puts a lot of pressure on your cornerbacks. One thing I think is for sure, if USC's rush defense, okay, if that doesn't improve in 2024, and I mean dramatically, I think the Trojan cornerbacks are going to need to find a way to make an impact differently than, trying to intercept the ball or make, breaking up passes. They're going to have to show up with their physicality because that probably means the run defense hasn't been fixed yet. It's still broken. That's why Michigan ran the ball right at Penn State. They didn't want to deal with their pass rush. They figured, all right, you know how we neutralize that? We're going to run the ball at them. Penn State couldn't stop the run, and Penn State had a good defense. So again, I have to imagine if you play cornerback in the big conference, that probably makes things a little bit more challenging when instinctually your first thing is to turn your back and start running the opposite direction, looking for the wide receiver, chasing that pass route. It's going to be interesting to see how the USC cornerbacks adjust as they play in the big conference this year. And then my other question, kind of a random question. How quickly can Marcelus Williams get into the 2 deep rotation? I mentioned the top 4 guys. If you watched USC spring game, you noticed that true freshman, well, number one, he's got a familiar last name. His older brother, Max, played nickel and he played safety for USC. Marcelus, this is his chance now. If you saw the spring game, you saw Marcelus make a couple of plays that had you asking, not what if, but when. When can Marcelus, get into that 2 deep, play in front of guys who are older, who have more experience? He showed that the game isn't too fast for him. Coach Riley told the media, told everybody, before the spring game, that Marcelus has been unusually consistent, was the term he used, for a freshman while making explosive plays like the interception during a team period this week and another pick during a scrimmage on Saturday. That was before the spring game. When Miller Moss was asked if any of the defensive backs were standing out during spring camp, he did not hesitate. I mean, he didn't even blink. Marcelus Williams has been awesome. That was his first thing. Obviously, a young kid. He's a high school senior still, technically, because he enrolled early. But he can definitely play corner with the best guys on our team right now. It's been really cool to see. Excited for that kid. He's definitely got a bright future, close quote. So USC's got the talent. Zero concern, zero issue as far as does USC have the talent to be able to compete at a high level in the big conference? Without a doubt. Yes, they do. I guess the question is, do they have guys who are willing to tackle? Because they're going to be asked to do that. I think opposing offenses are going to test USC's defense right up the middle. Stop the run. And if you can't, we're going to keep running at you. And the cornerbacks and the secondary at USC, they're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to get involved in a different way. I remember being a big-time Laker fan. I'm still a huge Laker fan. It's hard for me to watch the team right now. I used to go to the NBA Finals back when Magic Johnson, big game James Worthy, they were running the neighborhood at the Great Western Forum. Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Staples Center. If you're still a fan of the Boston Celtics or the Dallas Mavericks, don't care why you are, hey, you still have a chance to go check out their games. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. They've got all-in prices that show you your total upfront. That way, you know you're getting a great price and a great deal before you even check out. And you buy your tickets in seconds. It takes you 2 taps and you're done. And if you're a USC Trojan football fan, have you gotten your tickets for Las Vegas yet? Game in Vegas, LSU? Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. And the Game Time guarantee means you always get the best price. And if you find tickets in your same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED like David, O, N like Nancy for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I know we're watching Fox Sports. We've got ESPN on our TV all day, and we're constantly hitting that mute button because someone's yelling, someone's screaming. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel, and it's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, and it's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So who is next? We're still waiting for 2 of Coach Riley's bat signals, those fight on emojis. We're still waiting for 2 of those to be revealed. But there are other guys out there who are getting ready to drop their announcements too. I'm going to give you a few names. One of them, I just made this announcement. His name's Corey Sims, the wide receiver from Missouri, St. Louis. He said he's going to make his official announcement where he's going to commit June 30th. You know, he just came off of his USC official visit this past weekend. Coincidence? I don't know. Could be. Was he one of the 2? If you listen to yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, you know it could be. It's possible. I said it was an out-of-state recruit. So Corey checks off that box. 6'3", 205 pounds, wide receiver, St. Louis, Missouri. Again, he's going to announce his commitment June 30th. His final 3 choices: Missouri, Penn State, yours truly, the University of Southern California. Now, he's already taken an official visit to Penn State. He did that May 31st. We know he just completed his USC official visit, and he still has visits set up with Nebraska and the home school, Missouri. Back in April, Sims told On3's Chad Simmons, "Everybody wants me to stay home at Missouri. What matters to me is the feeling of being at home and being comfortable where I'm at. I want to know that I'm going to be developed into a receiver that I want to be and eventually make it to the next level. I also want to have great support behind me. Sounds like LA might be the place to be, right? USC knows how to develop wide receivers. I mean, the proof is in their pudding. Just look at the rosters in the NFL. Now, I do understand the pressure to stay home will be tough to overcome. Missouri's head coach, Eli Drinkwitz, he's got that program trending up. I've listened to him speak. I like what he has to say. But when it comes to comparing quarterbacks and wide receivers, there's no comparison. There really isn't. So does it matter that Corey Sims is making his announcement ahead of his announcement? And what I mean by that, has he already made up his mind? He's been to Missouri multiple times. And I'm sure Nebraska thinks they've got a puncher's chance with their official visit coming up. Look, I'll get to that thing. This is what he said about his visit to Missouri. They were the first team to offer me. I like Mizzou. I love Coach Jacob Peeler and Coach Elia Drinkowitz. On USC and Lincoln Riley are known for throwing the ball. They get the ball to their receivers, and they have great receivers. USC also has a great receivers coach, Dennis Simmons. Those were quotes before the trip. Here's what he said about USC after his official visit weekend. I'm pumped up about USC. The climate and culture is perfect. My family and I are excited about everything USC has to offer. I'm excited about the academic and long-term opportunities and the athletic program. Life after football is real, and I appreciate how USC works to prepare their student athletes for it all. I was excited to talk with Coach Riley and Coach Simmons this weekend. I had an opportunity to connect with prospects and current members of the USC football team. My parents and I had a chance to get all questions answered while getting a feel for the campus and the overall expectations of what it takes to be a Trojan. I enjoyed every minute of my visit. I love USC. I can see myself being a Trojan, so they're up there very high. Look, this is going to be a USC versus Missouri battle. Plain and simple. Like I said, Nebraska can think they have a puncher's chance. Let them think that. The reason why Missouri's in it, number one, your first offer is always going to hold a special place in your heart. And like I said, home team, Coach Eli, building something special up there. So Corey Sims, he could be one guy. Andrew Marsh, he's another wide receiver that USC feels solid about. He's from out of state. I know Coach Riley would love for him to pull the trigger. We've talked about Andrew Marsh a few times on this show. He's been to USC multiple times on his own dime with unofficial visits. The official visit was great with he and his family. USC might be the team to beat. Again, was he one of the two? He saw some more visits coming up, Texas being one of them. I think that will be USC's major obstacle, or who they'll be competing against the most. It'll be a USC-Texas battle. USC is probably the team to beat. But here's another new prediction that's coming in favor of USC. He was on his trip over the weekend. According to the On3 recruiting prediction machine, USC is beginning to trend for touted Miami, Florida central defensive lineman Floyd Boucard. I told you about him. Big, thick, flexible, like Gumby. Just go check out Monday's episode of Locked on USC from this week. This is what Floyd had to say about his visit. It was great. Had fun over there. Love the culture over there. And the one highlight that I loved is really the weather is great. So maybe he was one of those guys that Lincoln Riley threw this up for. Again, going into this weekend, Miami was considered the heavy lean. All of a sudden, recruiting prediction machine, it's tilted towards USC. Just saying. Speaking of who is next, take a little take it down a different rabbit hole on this one. Have any of you seen the big offensive tackle from Rancho Santa Margarita Catholic High School, Southern California, Orange County? Huge. He's class of 2025. His name is Elijah Vacona, and he was at USC this week, Tuesday, for their elite camp, juniors, up and comers. There's a video clip from Scott Schrader on his X account. Go check it out. You can see Elijah. He is just dominating the opposition. He's a mountain. Big. When I say big, I'm not exaggerating. 6'8", 345 pounds. That's big. That's Lincoln Kennedy size. Yeah, that guy. Now, here's what you want to know about Vacona. His great-grandfather went to USC 82 years ago. His grandmother is a USC alum. His mother is a USC alum. So probably wouldn't be surprising if Elijah became a USC alum at some point, right? He doesn't have an offer yet. That's why I said who's next. I think there's a good chance he's going to be getting one really soon, like in the next few days. The question is, will he accept it on the spot, or will he want to go through the recruiting process? He's just kind of now coming onto the radar. You can't teach that kind of size. He's got over 20 offers, including UCLA, Washington, Utah, Arizona State, Arkansas. Like I said, I think USC is they're going to throw their hat in the ring here soon. They did make an offer to a class of 2027 offensive lineman who was also there on Tuesday for this elite up-and-comers camp. I don't talk about guys that are that far out. You know my rule. I'll talk about juniors and seniors. Anything before that, I'll say your name, hello, and I'll see you in a couple of years. That's just my whole thing. You know how fluid recruiting is as it is. I don't want to be dealing with 8th and 9th graders. They're not on my radar yet. Sorry. No offense. All right. Hey, I want to give you some updates. Glad you stuck around. If you like the show, and I know you do because you keep coming back, that's why you're an everydayer, and keep spreading the word. If you're watching on YouTube, continue to help the show grow. Become a subscriber if you haven't done that yet. It's easy. Just click the red subscribe button. See this? It's called a thumbs up. Smash it. Pretend you're the Hulk. And click that bell notification button. That way you won't miss any upcoming episodes, including... So I told you that I was trying to work out my schedule with On3's JD Piquel. Boom, we did it. You'll see the two of us chopping it up together on a future episode of Locked on USC. I'll keep you updated as the date gets closer, but we have figured out a date. It's coming up. Don't worry. And then I'm starting a series with a group of players from USC's roster. I'm going to be interviewing each one of them. So make sure you keep tuning into Locked on USC. Specifically for this group of players, because you don't hear from these guys very often, and they're really important guys on this team. So that's why you need to become a subscriber. Hit that bell notification button. All right. So the reason I led off with JD Piquel, letting you guys know I've got that thing. We've got that interview, or that. We're just going to chop it up together. We're going to talk one-on-one. Because I went and looked at his X account, and he asked a question. What is college football's biggest what if? And that got me thinking, you know what? Maybe he read my Monday Morass, because every Monday over there on WeAreSC.com, I write a column called What If? Monday's Morass. What if, ... So I decided, what are some of USC's biggest what ifs? I want to throw these out there, kind of take the shotgun, shoot at the wall, see what sticks. Tell me if you agree. And I'm sure you've got some other what ifs. For instance, what if USC and Notre Dame never played? Think about this. Series goes back to what, 1926? The two coaches' wives said, hey, you know what? Let's get our husbands and get their football teams playing. It was really about Notre Dame and their head coach and the wife wanting to spend the winter in Southern California as opposed to South Bend, Indiana. That's how the whole thing started. So yeah, think about it. What if USC Notre Dame never played? Think about that. It's such a ingrained part of USC's history. It's part of her DNA. What if USC never took a chance on an assistant coach named John McKay? Think about that. Think about this. What if they did not let him get through his 1962 season? When McKay took over, they had a couple of rough spots. Yeah. And then boom, all of a sudden 1962 shows up, national champion. Another what if with John McKay. What if he never left for the NFL? He wrote that in his autobiography. It was his biggest regret, taking that job. Couldn't refuse it. I mean, he became the first $1 million coach. That wasn't happening back then. John McKay was the dude. I have a feeling if John McKay stuck around USC, they might have a few more national championships. Just saying. I mean, he left the team to John Robinson, who wasn't chopped liver. He won a national championship, but he wasn't able to really maintain that level that John McKay had at that. And again, things change. NCAA, a whole bunch of stuff. Speaking of the NCAA, what if they treated USC fairly? You know what I'm talking about. And on the other side of that coin, what if USC, decided to put on their big boy pants and sue the NCAA during that time period? Yeah. Speaking of, what if Pete Carroll never left USC? Yeah, we know what happened when he did. It's been an uphill climb ever since. But wow, what a ride, right? That dynasty that he had going, 34-game win streak, was so close to that three-peat. So many things had to go wrong in that game. Go against USC. Man. Like, specifically in that game, what if Matt Leinart completes the pass to Brandon Hancock? I bring that up because Matt Leinart had a great tweet on X. It still haunts him. He's got the O face. And it's just Vince Young running into the end zone at the end of the game. Yeah. I had to respond. What if, Matt, you completed the pass to Brandon Hancock? No response. He knows. Here's my final what if. What if USC was allowed to play for that 2008 national championship? Yeah, you know that team that had the great defense. Ray Mayaluga, Clay Matthews, Brian Cushing, Kaluka Maava. Linebackers, just the greatest linebacker class ever. Well, I think they would have won the championship that year, but how that could have just carried over, because 2009 things started to, but that's when the NCAA stepped in. Pete Carroll was again on his way out. What if? So what is the biggest what if in USC's history? Hit me up. You know what to do. I'll be back with another episode of Locked on USC tomorrow. I'll have my Friday rant. Find some recruiting news for you. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.